It does not perceive its existence as threatened by what? By projecting the threat onto you and perceiving your being as non-existent. Now, that which had only been an intellectual process has become an attack on your perceived sense of yourself. And you say, oh, I am feeling threatened. I am feeling uneasy. I am feeling uncomfortable. I don't like this, so I'm going to try to overcome it. And then you try to overcome it by never discerning the fact that the feeling has been suggested to you, insinuated into your mind, you might say, as a threat that you're experiencing rather than the threat that the ego is experiencing. And you never get around to undoing the ego itself. This ensures its continuance, if you side with it, by guaranteeing that you will not know your own safety. In other words, by guaranteeing that you will not remember that you are invulnerable because of what you really are. The ego cannot afford to know anything. Knowledge is total, or knowing with a capital K is total. It's a singularity. And the ego does not believe in totality or singularity. This unbelief is its origin. You see, the ego originated from an idea of less than wholeness. The ego originated in an imaginative sense of limitation, tininess. If you're going to be different from the infinite singularity that God is being right there where you are as you, the only other choice you can have is to be less than that, right? Because there's nothing greater than infinity that you could choose from. So if you've chosen to have a point of view of your own, that point of view is always going to be smaller than the singular wholeness of being. And therefore, the ego as a concept, as an imaginative thought, originated out of a sense of tininess, and that out of which it originated became the purpose and function of the ego, of that which came forth. And so the ego's function is to continue to create tininess, closets, little private spaces, and to ensure that no one else will suffer from the inspiration that would cause them to become bigger than the little space that the ego says it is confined to. This unbelief is its origin, and while the ego does not love you, it is faithful to its own antecedents, begetting as it was begotten, which is what I just described. the method by which something comes forth becomes the purpose and function of what comes forth. So if something is begotten in tininess, in limitation, in tininess and limitation, then tininess and limitation will become its, quote, creative, unquote, function. Mind always reproduces as it was produced. That's the law of being. So whether you have adopted a limited frame of reference or not, whatever proceeds, whatever follows, will be an expression I'm going to say, of the matrix which is the source of what comes forth. So, if you are not claiming a private mind of your own, and you are letting that mind be in you, which is God, then your very presence and being will embody and express in actions infinite creativity, if I may put it that way. It will embody that by which it itself came forth, expressing the nature and character and quality of that which formed it. And likewise, because you are unable to escape from reality, even though you imagine that you can, if you adopt a biased, tiny, limited frame of reference, everything that follows will embody that. What I am meaning to convey to you here is a fine point, and it is this. Whether you are ignorant or awake, ignorant or enlightened, everything still functions according to God's laws. And so, because nothing can come forth from a source unlike its source, because of that, even when you are ignorant and creating ignorantly, that which comes forth will unerringly embody and express its source. Therefore, because the ego is a tiny, private, personal sense of yourself, which holds itself apart from everyone else, everything that you do from that frame of reference will continue to embody and create and express those very same qualities of privateness, tininess, personalness, and so on. Are you seeing what I'm saying? My point here is that whether you're awake or asleep, God's laws still govern, and govern absolutely. And the way things work still work absolutely. That's because everything is inviolably a singularity. So if you have two ways to be, one which we'll say, generates harmony. And one, if you have two ways to be, one way that generates harmony and one way that generates disharmony or inharmony, you may know that whichever you choose, it will work absolutely. And you will perfectly express in harmony. You will flawlessly express in harmony. And never while you are coming from that frame of reference will anything other than in harmony come forth. It will be impossible for you as an ego to become enlightened. It will be impossible for you as an ego to really express love. Why? Because that requires involvement. And the ego is the embodiment of an idea of privacy. And so all it can generate is aloneness. That's why miracles are called for. And what is a miracle? A sudden shift of perception. And it will always be a sudden shift of perception from tininess to infiniteness, to bigness. It will always be a shift of perception from hate to love. It will always be a shift of perception from defense to gratitude. Another way of saying it is that you can never solve the problem from the level of the problem. Because from the level of the problem, all you can do is generate problems. So you must step out of the level of the problem into the level of the answer, which inevitably will beget the solution. And actually making the shift will have been the solution. Is this making sense? Mind always reproduces as it was produced. Produced by fear, the ego reproduces fear. This is its allegiance. That's its programming, you might say. This is its allegiance. That's what its operating system requires it to do. This is its allegiance. And this allegiance makes it treacherous to love because you are love. That doesn't mean this allegiance makes it, the ego, treacherous to love. It means that because the ego's allegiance is to fear, it is treacherous to the ego for you to love. Love is your power, which the ego must deny. Okay, so you know that because of what the ego is, it's always going to be denying the truth about you. Because the truth about you, if you begin to have a glimmer of it in your awareness, will cause you to withdraw your faith in the ego's suggestions. Love is your power, which the ego must deny. It must also deny everything which this power gives you, the Christ that you are, because it gives you everything. No one who has everything wants the ego. Its own maker, then, meaning the Christ that you are, does not want it. Right now, that which you divinely are does not want the ego experience. Now, that which you divinely are is what? The Holy Spirit. That which is nothing more than your right mind. The Holy Spirit, which is your right mind, doesn't want the ego, and so it stands with you constantly on your behalf your real mind, your right mind, stands with you on your behalf, constantly insinuating itself through your defenses, so that you might recognize it and begin to remember yourself, so that it, the Holy Spirit, your right mind, your Christhood, can inspire you with what? With the experience and remembrance of what you are, so that your allegiance to the ego will begin to falter because it begins no longer to make sense to you, because you're remembering who you are, because who you are is managing to register with you. I've said before, the Holy Spirit is your divinity held in trust while you dally with the ego. No one who has everything wants the ego. Its own maker, then, the Christ of you, does not want it. It does not want it. Rejection is therefore the only decision which the ego could possibly encounter if the mind which made it knew itself. Well, you didn't even know you had a right mind. You thought you were just you. And you thought your mind was just what it is. But now, you know that you have a right mind. I've been telling you over and over. I keep reminding you so that you don't forget and you don't slip back into ignorance of it and just waltz along following the traditional, habitual ego patterns. Rejection is therefore the only decision which the ego could possibly encounter if the mind which made it knew itself. And if it recognized any part of the sonship, it would know itself. If it recognized any part of the sonship, well, here's the wonderful thing. Every one of your friends, every one of your neighbors, every individual you run into every day provides you with the opportunity to remember the sonship. But you're pretty sure you know that the word sonship applied to them does not have a capital S. And so you're not open to the inspiration and revelation that awaits you in every encounter. Thank God, you haven't met all of us yet. Because you have no opinion about an awakened brother. The only thing you know for sure is that you don't know anything about what an awakened brother is, except that an awakened brother has something you're envious of. You at least know that there is something wonderful that might be gotten from an awakened brother. And so, you have guides which you can turn to. And they become the one, the any part of the sonship that you can recognize that would allow you to begin to know yourself. You also have the Holy Spirit. Something else you have no opinion about, except that it has something you probably want. And so there's a resource for you to turn to. that you can't poo-poo because you haven't become familiar enough with it yet to think you know what its flaws are and have an opinion, a judgmental opinion about. And so you have means of breaking the isolation if you are arriving at a point where isolation is beginning to be too uncomfortable for you to continue in. Continuing, the ego, therefore, opposes all appreciation. Another way of saying that would be that the ego, therefore, opposes all gratitude, all recognition, all sane perception, and all knowledge. It perceives their threat as total because it senses the fact that all commitments the mind makes are total. And this is true. Once again, it's the way it works. It's one of the laws of God. All commitments the mind makes are total. Whether you're enlightened or dreaming a dream, every commitment you make is total. And so if you have made commitment to the ego, it's total. And everything that comes forth from that frame of mind will engender and embody and attempt to continue embodiments of that which is of the nature and character of the ego: limitation, fear, defense, jealousy, hatred. All the things that firmly establish isolation and the ongoing need for securing that isolation. Continuing, regarding the ego, forced, therefore, to detach itself from you who are mind, it is willing to attach itself to anything else. But there is nothing else. It does not follow that the mind cannot make illusions, but it does follow that if it makes illusions, it will believe in them, because that is how it made them. It's like if you paint a picture with red paint, the picture will be red. That which you use to make something is what the something will be. And so if you paint with the ego, the picture will be ego expressed, ego embodied, ego illustrated, and nothing else. How a thing is made is what it will be. Now, on the other hand, the Holy Spirit undoes illusions without attacking them, merely because he cannot perceive them at all. They, therefore, do not exist for him. And to bring it home again, this him is nothing more than your right mind. It's you. Your right mind cannot perceive them at all. Illusions. They therefore do not exist for your right mind. Your right mind, he, resolves the apparent conflict which they engender by perceiving conflict as meaningless. It would be wonderful to have a friend like that, wouldn't it? Who can see that clearly, to help you see that clearly. It's even more wonderful to know that you have something closer than a friend. You have your very self, your right mind, accompanying you every moment, having one purpose on its mind, and that is to help you become disillusioned, free of illusions. We said before that the Holy Spirit perceives the conflict exactly as it is and it is meaningless. The Holy Spirit does not want you to understand conflict. He wants you to realize that because conflict is meaningless, it cannot be understood. You see, the ego has set up a lot of straw dogs for you to attend to. And straw dogs are things that don't actually exist, but which you have been fooled into believing do. It's like kids sending other kids out into a field at night to go snipe hunting with a candle and a gunny sack, because if you hold the candle up, it will confuse the snipe and it will fly into the gunny sack. Well, that's a wild goose chase, or an attempt to attend to a straw dog. And to try to understand illusion is a wild goose chase. And so your right mind helps you neglect to attend to foolish endeavors that can't be accomplished. And so it saves you time and energy. The ego, on the other hand, provides you only with straw dogs, only with wild goose chases. Continuing, we have already said that understanding brings appreciation, and we could say gratitude, and appreciation brings love. Nothing else can be understood because nothing else is real, and therefore nothing else has meaning. If you will keep in mind what the Holy Spirit, that which is nothing more than your right mind, offers you, you cannot be vigilant for anything but God and His kingdom. The only reason you find this difficult is because you think there is something else. The ego has managed to convince you that there's such a creature as a snipe that you can catch in a weird fashion. And of course you have to be sure no one else goes with you, because that will scare them away. And then you end up being the lone fool out in the middle of the field with a candle and a gunny sack, while all of your knowledgeable buddies stand way back and laugh. The ego is not your friend. Again, the only reason you find this difficult is because you think there is something else besides God and His kingdom. Belief does not require vigilance unless it is conflicted. If it is, there are conflicting components within it which have engendered a state of war, and vigilance therefore has become essential. Vigilance has no place at all in peace. You could say vigilance has no place at all in singularity. It is necessary against beliefs which are not true and would never have been called upon by the Holy Spirit if you had not believed the untrue. You cannot deny that when you believe something, you have made it true for you. And I'm going to add, but remember that you have not made it true. When you believe what God does not know, your thought seems to contradict His. And this makes it appear as if you are attacking Him. We have repeatedly emphasized that the ego does believe it can attack God and tries to persuade you that you have done this. Catch the shift.